Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good day.
Goodness.
Goodness gracious me. Good night. We've forgot that one.
night.
You could be in bed
Loch
listening to this
Ness.
one. In Loch Ness, it is night.
We haven't done Loch Ness for a while.
We haven't had the old Scottish catchphrase of Loch Ness.
Could you explain
yes.
the podcast?
No, it's completely incomprehensible.
It's cult television, right? We chat about cult television. It's very hot. It's very hot. And I don't know whether we're going to make it.
It's a boiling, swelteringly hot day.
And Jamie Anderson tells me that he's on a train and that he's lost his driver.
Oh dear. He's lost his... What? They've got that old deal.
Yeah, but he just said he's got a new one.
Hello.
Have you got a new driver now?
Yeah, we've got one. It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you're on the podcast. You're on the Benji and Nick Show.
Hello again. I've missed you.
Oh.
It's been a while.
Why did you stop calling?
I don't know. I forgot last time.
Oh, okay. That's as good an excuse as any.
It's pathetic, really. I'm showing you the microphone, so you're nice and close to the...
Right.
So he's looking at... On FaceTime,
Hello,
he's looking at a microphone. It's really weird. I don't know why. I think the sound quality's better on FaceTime. That's why I'm doing FaceTime.
Right. Do I need the pop shield, though, from here? Not really.
Yes, he needs to get into a booth.
Yeah. Well, of course, we're no longer massively promoting your stuff, although we do have a Captain Scarlet competition to award the prize for today.
You certainly do. And it's a very, very exciting collection of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Can you remember what it is?
You remind the listeners.
Well, Network Distributing releasing a very special limited edition Captain Scarlet high definition box set, and you might win volumes 1 to 4 and the box set, which is limited to 1,250 units worldwide.
Wow, that's...
So a very special prize is worth £55, I think.
Ooh.
Yeah, well, we will be selecting the winner later. Yeah. And tell us about your new podcast, Jamie.
Are you sure you want to be boosting the competition?
Well, you're already doing better than us.
Oh, it's all nonsense anyway, isn't it? Yeah, well, we're doing the Jerry Anderson podcast, so it's not really competing with you, because you and Benji are a special pair, aren't you?
Yeah, we're a right special pair, yeah.
Exactly, we're a right pair of podcasters. Yeah, the Jerry Anderson podcast with me and Richard James, talking stuff that's about Jerry Anderson and doing interviews with people like Sophia Miles and Lee Sullivan and Sophie Aldred.
Yeah, and me.
And you, eventually, yeah.
Yeah, when's my one on?
I don't know, in a few weeks probably, but it's a weekly thing out on a Monday, so I'd love it if people would listen to us and subscribe and stuff, but
well, yeah,
I wouldn't want to force them.
Well, just when they're, recovered from the Benji and Nick Show, I think it's time to get into the Jerry Anderson podcast, isn't it?
I agree. I think they're a lovely pair. They complement each other well.
Brilliant. Well, perhaps you should phone me randomly during your podcast.
We had thought about it, actually. Yeah, so watch out on Mondays, because that's what we record as well.
Okay, what am I doing? Oh, yeah, okay. I'm around on Monday. What have I let myself in for? Yeah. Wow. Okay, well, I can see the scenery moving past you. So.
Yes, because we've got a driver. Amazing.
How late is your train?
About half an hour. I mean, that's not bad for an English train, is it?
Yeah. Well, but...
So...
Benji was just telling me that he overheard someone talking yesterday saying that it was taking them 6 hours to get from London down to, Eastbourne, that sort of area? Yeah, 6 hours. Terrible. All right, Jamie, I'll let you go. It's lovely to chat to you, as always.
Likewise, thanks for having me.
And I'm sorry you've had such a peculiar view of my beard.
It's all right. It's lovely texture.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Have a nice podcast, bye.
Cheers, bye.
God, magic.
Well, there we are.
The magic of communication, eh?
Yeah.
I remember once upon a time where we had to write him letters. And then we'd have to wait for them to get to him and wait for him to reply. But now we can just phone him. It's just a technological marvel.
At this stage, we should mention two things. We'd really love you to rate and review us and subscribe to us on iTunes if you fancy it, or just go to the nicholasbriggs.com site or redraygun.co.uk and you'll find the podcast there. Also on SoundCloud.
Yes, SoundCloud is a good one. As well as that, but spread the word as well. Share it about if you're on your social medias, on your Twitters, on your Facebooks, or whatever the other ones are, because there are loads of them which I don't use. Tumblr, do people use that?
I tried but failed.
Yeah,
and Instagram as well. I couldn't do Instagram either. I just didn't know what to do with it.
I do like a bit of Instagram. That's quite fun. So just
you can only do it from a mobile phone.
Yes. Well, actually, no. I've got an app called Flume on my Mac, which I can upload from there. Although, to be honest, I only use it for messages. I don't really use it for anything else. But you can upload videos and all sorts from it. It's quite. Yeah,
the trouble is when you do it, it's like a scheduler, isn't it? Though.
No, not this one.
Oh,
this one's just the app.
Does it cost?
You can get the free one, but I pay extra because I just pay for everything really. Anything with extra benefits, I'll pay for because I'm just that type of person.
Oh, okay.
I like a premium life, Nick. I don't deal with adverts and all that beeswax.
Oh, by the way, folks, the television program we're discussing today is Pathfinders.
Yes,
a World War II thing. Yes, we'll be discussing that later. Oh, well, soonish. But we've got other things to get through. Even though we're not doing any massive promotion for the Jerry Anderson store, shop.jerryanderson.co.uk, we are still running a free shipping offer that if you go there and you order something and you type in destroy, destroy, destroy as your special code, that's all, three the same word 3 times in block capitals, you'll get free shipping, which is...
makes a difference, doesn't it? It does make a huge difference. I was expecting you to say, although we're not sponsoring the Jerry Anderson store so much anymore, we are in fact sponsoring John's Sheds. You can buy a shed or an outhouse for just $49.99 from your local store.
John who?
It's just got to be something completely unrelated to the podcast in any way.
Yes.
So they're like, Brian Atkinson's Dentistry, based in Bristol, and he also has a practice down in Ackminster. You can get a filling if you quote him with "Oh my tooth!" You get a free filling.
Arthur Askey's flame retardant gloves. I don't know what I said. Arthur Askey. Hello, playmates. Anyway,
that would be sort of related.
We also ask you to send in emails to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com, and they keep on coming in. Thank you very much. And we will be announcing the Captain Scarlet competition winner later on in this very podcast. I was going to say, though, that if you fancy emailing in, I could even offer you an incentive.
Chocolate digestives for every... No. You get a free Chocky D.
Audiobooks. What's that? Now, I can offer you a free audiobook of a story read by me called Skane, The Library at Iffley Tower. Ooh. And you'll get a free download of that if you write into the Benji Nick show this week. So if you email podcast@nicholasbriggs.com and send us it doesn't matter whether we read the email out or not, but you will get a free copy of Skane as a download, because it's only available as a download.
Stupid not to, really, isn't it? Really, you've got to get involved.
I mean, if you really want a CD, I think we've got a few CDs we ran off, but so there you go. And it's written by Jonathan Barnes, who's a fantastic writer who writes Sherlock Holmes for Big Finish. So it's a beautiful piece of work, even though I'm in it.
Very Alan Partridge. It's a beautiful piece of work, even though I'm in it. In fact, that makes it better. In fact, that's the beautiful reason. No, I'm going overboard. I'll stop. I won't, but I might. No, I won't. Seriously. But if we were talking earlier with JB about train troubles and being stuck on the rails, and so it is important that you have a suitable selection of things to tingle your molecules and get you home on time. So an audiobook is the perfect way, and so absolutely go for it. And if you've got any stories about train trouble on the was really hoping in my mind. I thought that rails began with a T for some stupid reason. I was going to do some great alliteration, but I realised I can't. Train trouble on the tracks. There we go. That's what I was trying to think. There we go. That's what I was obviously thinking of. There we go. Magic. Yeah. Loch Ness.
Can you hear that? There's a helicopter coming over here.
Ah, yes. Well, that'll be the our new sponsor, won't it? The John's
Westland Helicopters.
Westland Helicopters. If you fancy a trip around the bay, or if you just fancy a small flight along the flight path, Westland's Helicopters are there for you. You've got to have that. With our fleet of 5 helicopters, we are going to make sure that you have a great ride. They're sort of terrible adverts. Oh, I love it. There was a great one shared on. I'm just talking to you now. That one on. You know that.
I'm interested in what you're saying, Benji.
You know that Twitter channel that we both subscribe to, the one with like really small clips of old like sort of regional television. Is it called like CB something?
I don't know.
It's got to the point I just retweet it because it's all so good. They had one of their like advertising an Indian restaurant, like that type of small scale advertising, and it said something along the lines of like our restaurant is highly recommended, and then they just show a clip of it completely empty on the inside. So I'm trying to see if I've put up anything recently. Let's have a look.
They, we must have spoken about this before. They have those. They used to have those adverts in the cinema, didn't they? Where they had a stock piece of animation saying, "Quick, I must go here," and a little man running and running and running, and he goes into some sort of cartoon building, and then they put in a photograph of whatever restaurants paid them to have that. Yes, come to the so-and-so tandoori. It's really great. And as you say, it was usually photographs of empty restaurants.
Just terrible, isn't it?
Badly edited in as well, sort of on the soundtrack as it sort of just bumped in.
Comes on the picture like that, makes that noise. The website, the Twitter channel to get up is CFB Clips. Highly recommended. I love it to bits.
What does CFB stand for?
I've no idea. Charming, Forgotten, Bizarre, I believe, actually, is what it says there.
That's a nice title,
but it's absolutely brilliant. I can't get enough of it. If you like this podcast, you'll love that.
Wow. And talking of Charming, Forgotten and Bizarre, people are saying on the internet today that it's my 13th anniversary as executive producer of Big Finish.
Wow, 13
And I don't
years?
know, I don't know who's saying it, though. I see people reacting to it, but I can't find out the source of it. It's not on the... I can tell you for certain that Big Finish aren't saying anything about it. But apparently...
Let's have a look. Look at this, Briggs.
How do they know when I started? I don't know when I started. I know it was in July. So maybe...
I mean, let's have a look. Briggs, Nicholas...
People are being sort of cryptic about it. Richard Dinnick said, another social media site. I thought, just tell me the page.
Oh, yeah, Richard Dinnick there...
I'm intrigued, and I can see you looking at the screen, and I'm just waiting for words of wisdom.
Here's to many more years by Guido Lipp. Andy, I really do care, don't you? Says 13 years and quite some change, but it's
where did they find it out from? Well, because I didn't say.
Right, according to it. On Facebook, the book, maybe? Big Finish?
Yeah, but where, though? It's not on the Big Finish page. It's like you're not listening to me.
I'm consumed in my own journey of knowledge.
The journey of knowledge.
How peculiar. That's really strange, isn't it? I can't think of any more social media websites that have...
No, I think it probably is Facebook. What I'm really getting at is whose Facebook page was this announced on?
Not a clue.
Okay. I just thought through your youthful enthusiasm and expertise, you'd be able to work these things out.
Well, the thing is, I don't have Richard Dinnick on my Facebook. Otherwise, I'd check his activity and hope that he'd liked a status which says that he is somewhat... I don't know. Who knows?
Anyway, I feel we're wasting time. So if you write to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com, we might read out your email. So what have I got here? I won't read that out because that's the competition winner.
That's abuse.
Oh, yes. Now, talking of abuse, Ian Humphreys won the Thunderbirds alarm clock, and he complained that he didn't get it.
Again?
But he says, hi, Nick and Benji. Good news. The extra helping of Trill has worked, and the pigeon has finally made its way to the baking northwest of the UK, of England. I've attached a couple of photos to show you. Yeah, they're rather good. Many thanks to you both, and please also pass on my great thanks to Jamie Anderson. I should have mentioned it to Jamie on the phone, shouldn't I? 2, when next you call to interrupt him. Maybe next time. Keep on bucking up. I just spell-checked that to make sure I didn't make a mistake. All the best, Ian H. P.S. Reek Quatermass. Nick, did you have any involvement with the live BBC episode they did with Jason Fleming and David Tennant in the mid-noughties? Do you know, have I told you my story about that? It's crushingly sad.
Oh, go on. Do tell.
Before David Tennant was Doctor Who, this isn't the sad bit. Before David Tennant was Doctor Who, he was working on Casanova and I was working on Doctor Who, and we were texting each other all the time because, you know, we were both working for Russell T Davies, and Russell would say things about each of us to each other, you know. And so at some point before it was apparent that Christopher Eccleston was leaving, when I was in a sort of, I'm sure it was during the filming of the last 2 episodes, I came back to London and I had lunch with David. And we had a long old lunch. And my father had just died as well. And David was being extremely sympathetic and the lovely person he is. While we were... And our lunch kind of slid into afternoon and evening sort of thing.
One of those lunches.
A few lemonades, you know. And eventually a lady came over and said, oh, it's David, isn't it? And he was, yes. And she said, oh, I'm a casting director. And I'm casting at the moment for a new version of Quatermass. And, you know, I haven't been able to get hold of you. And I wonder whether you'd be interested. And he said, God, yeah. But he immediately said, and my friend Nick here is an actor and you really should see him. And she went, oh, and she was very nice about it. So the next day I got an appointment and I went into this casting. And they obviously had held the casting simply because David Tennant had said to it. And they sat there and they said, hi, good to meet you. And they said, oh, you know, Quatermass. And I'd been sent the script and read it and everything. And sort of talked about, they said, what would you like to play? I said, well, how about Quatermass? And they went, no, seriously, what would you like to play? And I just said, well, I don't know, anything you like. And what do you think? You know, and they said, well, we don't really know. Anyway, nice to meet you.
Oh, that's nice of them, isn't it?
So they just, you know, so I would like to hunt these people down and and make a rude sign at them, because it was horrible. I mean, they made no bones about it. You know, they might as well have just said, we don't want you in this. We don't want to see you. We're only doing this to make David Tennant happy. But to do it in such a blatantly rude way, I just thought was unforgivable, actually.
Well, I think
so if you're listening like and you're the casting director, or in fact the director of that show, is what I have to say to you. It made me feel like worse than nothing. It was horrific.
Well, that's it. You just don't.
That's showbiz.
That's showbiz, isn't it? It's a very troubling sort of thing, isn't it? Really, but I thought
it was just reprehensible behaviour. You know, they couldn't even be bothered to be polite or say, "Look, I'm afraid there's nothing for you." And really,
surely that's the easiest thing. They just say we've got a specific role for David in mind. However, we don't really have anything else. However, if we find anything in the future, we'll let you know.
Yes, because other jobs have happened like that for me. You know, I remember I got a part in who's that? The Belgian detective, the Agatha Christie one.
Oh,
Poirot.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I got a lovely part in that, and then they rewrote the script, and the lovely part no longer existed.
Oh,
and the casting director said, "Look, I'm really sorry. We should never have made the offer while the part before the script was finalised. It was a really good part." And then they said, but we'll look out for something for you. And then years later, they gave me an audition to do an episode of Lewis.
Oh, Lewis is quite good, though, isn't it?
Well, and I did end up being in it, but not in the part that I auditioned for. Because I remember reading the character description Of course, I was a lot younger then. It said slightly podgy 40-year-old. And I thought, slightly podgy? How dare you? Anyway, so I read for the role, and even if I say so myself, I thought it went rather well. And afterwards, the message came back from my agent. He said, they really love you. They think they thought you were really good, but there's one problem. And I said, what? And they said, they just don't think you're podgy enough. And I thought, yes,
that's damn good. I'd lose a job for that happily.
They said, however, because they liked you so much, and because of that thing that happened with Poirot a while back, look, there's another part that they'd love you to do. It's nowhere near as big as the other part. It's just a day's filming, but they'll just, if you want to do it, they'll give you the part straight away, no re-auditioning necessary, which is very unusual for television. They want to check everything. They said, just come in and play Joanna Lumley's solicitor for a day. It's just 2 lines, you know. And I said, oh yeah, I'll do that. And it was one of the nicest experiences of my life.
Just goes to show, doesn't it?
It's lovely.
Good karma. That's the thing, you know. It's sometimes things work out. Sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do. I was expecting you to have some great punchline when you said, but they've got another big part for you. I was expecting to say,
yes, I'm playing Joanna Lumley next time.
No, I was expecting to say something like, yes, very stout man, and which you said, just put the phone down and said, nope, is this some kind of insult?
Mind you, the amount of food I've been eating recently, probably I'll qualify for that.
Well, I've booked the gym in for next week, so that means I put it in my diary and I won't go. But it's there. It's one of those things you put it in and you think this is going to happen, but it doesn't.
Exercise is good for you, but if you want to lose weight, you just have to stop eating so much. That is the quickest way to lose weight. Honestly, exercise, it's really difficult to get exercise to make you lose weight. You have to do a phenomenal amount of exercise to burn off calories. Just don't put the calories in the first place. That's my experience of it. I mean, whenever I eat loads and drink lots of beer, I suddenly think, oh, I'm a bit fat. So I stop doing it. And funnily enough,
it just evens out.
Stop being so fat. Yeah.
Well, it does. It's amazing how quickly...
advice.
Amazing how quickly it comes into effect as well. But to be fair, I just want to run a bit. I miss running around and exercise. I'm desk bound now, so I live here like I'm like the commander of a starship that never goes anywhere. I just sit in a chair.
Captain?
I just swivel around and order invisible people to do things.
Here's another email. Jim Murrell or Morell, subject line. Sorry, Jim, we always forget how to pronounce your name. Suggestion is the subject line. Greetings, gentlemen. After your performance in the latest episode, I can suggest a new section entitled, this is from a couple of weeks back, 3 moderately easy questions about cult TV, where cult TV is largely restricted to the catchphrases of Doctor Who, Catweasel and Jerry Anderson.
That would work.
Bit of a mouthful, but I'm sure Benji could whistle up a jingle. Whilst I'm here, can I put in a second shout for the Nightmare Man to be discussed, please? This is an overlooked little BBC gem and scared the pants off me when I first saw it. What more could you want? What, you having your pants scared off? It's a bit worrying. Robert Holmes. Oh, I see. Robert Holmes, Douglas Camfield, Celia Imrie, and James Warwick. Buck up and put this one on the agenda forthwith. All best. Jim Morell, sent from a remote Scottish island in the late 1970s.
Oh, I like it. Well, one thing we should do at this point, I feel that we've done this podcast enough times now to justify making a list for the future. So I think one thing we'll have to do is we'll have to look at all those recommendations from people and make a little list there so that we know what we've got coming up. And then also,
have you got the list? I rather like the anarchy of just choosing at the last minute there.
It is true. Anarchy is fun, isn't it?
But it's quite nice to have a list going that we can pick from.
Yes.
Do you want to make a list? Do you want to put the Nightmare Man down there now on your list?
I will do, yes.
He's got a pencil in his hand, but has he got any paper?
I don't think I've ever actually written anything down with this pencil. I bought it and just never used it.
Except to sort of pose with in a sort of 1970s journalist way.
Reports are coming in. So was Nightmare Man.
Yeah.
Nightmare Man. There we go. Underlined as well.
Sorted. Okay, thank you for that one, Jim. Gary Willard says, Wurzel Gummidge podcast is his subject line. Hello, Niche and Beijing.
I like that.
Having just listened to your podcast today on Southern TV children's series, Wurzel Gummidge,
Somebody had to do it.
I was waiting. I was compelled to drop you another email saying how good it was to hear you both talk fondly about a TV series I saw at the time as a 5-year-old in 1979, you youngster, although still older than Benji. It brought back fond memories for me, and some that I had forgotten, especially when Benji mentioned Wurzel's creation Dafthead. I know that this series... this series wouldn't be made today with what you were saying, the characters John and Sue's dad off down the pub and the bookies, and especially with Wurzel changing his heads. All the actors did a wonderful job in portraying their roles, especially Barbara Windsor as Saucy Nancy. Oh goodness, yeah. And a rival to the horrible Aunt Sally. When in your conversation Benji started to speak Wurzelese, I was reminded of getting home from school to find that my mum had turned into a scarecrow. No, I just made that bit up. To find that my mum had bought for me a 7-inch vinyl single, which I still treasure to this day, Wurzel's song, as shown in the series, and on the B-side was Who'd Be a Scarecrow. This was my first introduction to John Pertwee's work. And I didn't know that he'd been the Doctor in Doctor Who until a few years later. Wow. And mirroring what Nick was saying in the podcast, I deliberately put off watching any Doctor Who with John in it for fear of it ruining Wurzel Gummidge for me. But when I started with, yes, you guessed it, Death to the Daleks, I never looked back. Wow. Thank you both for all the hard work you both do in putting together these podcasts, and with your work at Big Finish. Oh, by the way, how about doing a podcast on another ITV series called The Shillingbury Tales, a comedy drama from around the same time, which starred Bernard Cribbins and Dog, I think that may be. Some more memories for us all. Many thanks, Gary Willard, signing off. Have you put that down, Shillingbury Tales?
I've put it on the list, yeah. I've written it down in pencil, no less.
So he's watching Wurzel Gummidge at the age of 5 in 1979, but was unaware that John Pertwee had been Doctor Who. That's what you call a lack of the internet.
Yeah, and sometimes I think in a way it's nice to have those sorts of surprises. Now, interestingly enough, talking of the Shillingbury Tales, of course, that Bernard Cribbins was also in Wurzel Gummidge, opposite Barbara Windsor as well. Interesting enough. In which he played Jolly Jack, and there's a great episode where he's in a fish and chip shop. I seem to believe, and I just remember it's like it's one of those little episodes where I just every time I watch it I want fish and chips. But there's loads of, and the other
I just want fish and chips anyway.
Who doesn't? The rival to Aunt Sally was Dolly Clothes Peg, and there was also
so it wasn't Saucy Nancy then.
So Saucy Nancy was a rival, but Dolly was like the big rival, like Dolly Clothes Peg.
Was that Barbara Windsor then?
No, that was Dolly Clothes Peg was Lorraine Chase.
No, but who was but Saucy Nancy was Barbara
was another.
Windsor.
She was a rival as well, but in a different. Yeah, she was a ship's figurehead. She was on wheels.
Oh yeah, Lorraine Chase, who was famous for going Luton Airport in an advert, and she built a whole career on that.
Yep, she's exactly the same. She's a mogul in this one, a London mogul. Dolly Clothes.
I know not what you speak of. A London mogul.
A model, but she called it a mogul, innit? She said, I'm a mogul, innit? I suppose like this. And, great telly that, isn't it? Great telly.
Shall I go? I don't want to interrupt your nostalgia.
I was just having the time of my life.
Oh. Well, that's what this podcast is for. On to the next email. Now, this is from someone who identifies himself as Colonel Phineas Waldorf Smythe.
Love it.
But I think he's probably really called Greylis, or is he Colin de Greurs or so? Anyway, this wonderful person is the person who sends in all those lovely magazine cover.
They are so good.
They're fantastic.
They make my week.
Oh, it's amazing. And he's done one for this week as well, which I've already put on Facebook.
I've not seen that yet.
The subject line is bad back. I'm not sure I know why.
It's not an encouraging one, is it?
Finished watching the shenanigans of Shadow, and you are right, Mr. Nick. The last 6 or so episodes are wildly different to the rest of the series and very, very bonkers. Enjoyed the first episode of Arthur of the Britons. I watched it on YouTube. Bit of a bold move to kill the main character before the title sequence starts, as well as calling the episode Arthur is Dead, but I liked it. So much so, in fact, that I went and purchased the box set, thinking brilliant. The quality would be better. It's not. Another series that could do with a restoration and upscaling. No, well, we complained about it at the time. Also had a look at Daft Head from Wurzel Gummidge. It's possibly the creepiest thing in children's TV since Hartley Hare from Pipkins. Do you remember Hartley Hare from Pipkins?
I do, yeah.
Yes, he was terrifying, wasn't he?
You're giving me the willies just thinking about it now, listening to that.
Piggy spoke like that today. This is right. It's very promising. Communications.
Hartley Hare, I'm going to obliterate the human race. Right, enough rambling from me, says Colonel Phineas Waldorf Smythe. Looking forward to Sunday's podcast. Regards, Colonel Phineas Waldorf Smythe, retired. P.S. Attached is a copy of issue 17 of the Benji and Nick Show magazine I found in a charity shop.
I love it so much.
They look like they've been found in charity shops, don't they?
They're so brilliant. I can't read the Nick. It says under your emails there's Nick and Benji, but I can't. There's certain bits of it I can't read because of my colour blindness, because of the colour contrast. So it says Nick gets something and Benji something about. So I can't read that. So you might.
Oh, you mean the one on Facebook?
Yeah.
Let me have a look.
I just can't. That's terrible, isn't it? Really? It's
not. It's just.
It's rarely a problem.
Says, Nick gets Tetchy, and Benji. Oh, I can't see what it says about Benji as well. Benji. No, I can't see what that says. That's a bit frustrating, isn't it?
Oh well, we'll never know.
Typical of a magazine in a charity shop.
I love the picture of Paddy Payne, a warrior of the skies. It's funny actually mentioning Arthur of the Britons rather. Yes. Which I was in the studio with Mark Platt earlier this week, writer for Doctor Who, lots of big finishy stuff, and also Space 1889, and that. But he said, because I didn't realise he listened, which is lovely, first of all. But also he said,
hello, Mark.
He said, you've inspired me. I must go back and watch Arthur of the Britons. And we had a little chat just talking about it as a show. But it's funny, isn't it, how you can just suddenly be reminded of these television programmes which you sort of forget exist, and then all of a sudden you're brought back. And the wonder of like the internet now as well is that you can find things so easily and quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's lovely. But I love a chat about old cult telly. So yeah, that was great fun. That was.
And people may remember Mark Platt. Who wrote Ghostlight.
He did, yes.
TV Doctors Who. I don't know why I said that.
Doctor Zoo.
Doctor Zoo. And Mark Platt is one of the nicest human beings you're ever likely to meet. He will bake you a cake, and he is just so. Self-effacing and gentle and good company, and such an excellent writer. I particularly admire him because he's nothing like my writing, and he bamboozles me, and he's timeless. You know what I mean? I think his writing transcends what latest trends. He does his own thing, and if you just let it live the way it should, it's superb. People love his work. I love his work.
Oh, same, absolutely. And like you say, I've not met him before. I was in the studio, but I just thought it was such a nice guy. And it was quite funny because he got to the studio before anybody else. So we were greeted by him because Toby had popped out. And so it was just, it was the nicest way to start the day. So yeah, great fun.
Back to Colonel Phineas Waldorf Smythe, retired. He says, PPS... Thank you for putting the covers I sent not only on your Facebook page, but also on your official website. Wandered around with a big old smile on my face when I saw them there. Sent by my portable telecalculation emailatron engine.
Well, we put them up because they're brilliant. That's why they're absolutely
They are. Keep them
fantastic.
coming, I feel like I should be paying you loads of money, but I haven't got loads of money, so I can't pay you. But please do keep them coming. They're absolutely gorgeous. You're a very talented fellow. Thank you very much. And I still don't really know what your name is. So maybe tell me.
Mysteries. Cole Grace. Oh, who knows?
Mystery.
So yeah, I suppose we better start our chat about Pathfinders.
Right.
one of those ones. I discovered it. Actually discovered it because I just love the Second World War. Well, obviously it's a horrible Second World War. It's awful, but I love programs about it and finding out about it and dramas about it.
Well, it's an incredible, piece of history, isn't it? An incredible part of history. Very high stakes for everyone
and so recent as well.
And
that's
for the
what
whole
I
world.
think. It's terrifying how recent it is. Because
just think how recent it was for me when I was a kid. It was,
Oh yeah, I can
growing
imagine.
up in the 60s. That's why it's embedded in me, because, as I've said before, my parents and my grandparents would talk about it all the time, because they really, in some way that they'd never admit, they were suffering from sort of post-traumatic stress, because they'd been bombed to heck in Southampton every night in an air raid shelter. The carpet factory at the end of their street being blown to bits. Every time they rebuilt it, it got blown up again. It was a carpet factory, but they were convinced the Germans thought it manufactured ammunitions.
Perhaps they got confused when they thought that all these sort of Spitfires were firing sort of rugs and carpets at them.
Or maybe they wanted to stop the carpet bombing.
Hey! War is hell. But it's
tell us more about Pathfinders.
Well, just quickly, where I'm living now, actually, over the road, because this is a Victorian house, Victorian street, all the houses, including the pub. Well, the pub's older. But over the road, there's...
The pub's a mud hut.
The pub's a little tent up a tree. But directly across from where I live, there's sort of two modern houses, 60s sort of modern houses, in between two Victorian things. And I'm convinced that would have been where a bomb... dropped,
Sure.
and thus, because Eastbourne was actually one of the most bombed places in the country, because for two really interesting reasons. Firstly, which is
was it something to do with the bad production at the Devonshire Park?
Yes, they hated it. The Germans. There was number one on Hitler's list.
I saw this production of The Sound of Music.
It was most unsatisfactory.
Luckily, The Sound of Music hadn't been written at that point. Anyway.
No, it hadn't, I suppose. Yeah, but no,
because it's about the Second World War.
But so basically, the first reason is that on the way back from London bombing raids, Eastbourne was pretty much the place where they would ditch any bombs that they had left over. So it would always end up. It would always be the place that they dropped off. But secondly, as well, they could navigate using the pier. And I think it was the station or something like that. They worked out that if you dropped a bomb between the pier and the station, you're guaranteed to hit the town. So it was like it was one of those things you think, right, we can drop them now. It's definitely going to hit a target. And so subsequently, the place was really badly bombed, although you wouldn't think it to look at it. But interesting fact for you there about the war. But
the thing you say about dropping off bombs after bombing London, I think that was a feeling that a lot of South Coast towns had. I mean, that's the story that my grandmother told me about Southampton. Oh, they always saved a few bombs for us on the way back to get rid of them. So I think a lot of people felt that.
Definitely.
And Southampton was, a very
bad. Historic
city and bombed really, really badly. I mean, there's some the huge historic walls that were all around Southampton were, a lot of them utterly destroyed, a lot of landmarks.
Also a huge naval port, so it's going to, it's again a really good target. It's a place you think you're going to probably do some form of damage.
Oh, absolutely.
By dropping a bomb on there. But the Pathfinders is an interesting series about Bomber Command and the group called Pathfinders, and it was their job in the Second World War to drop the flares before the bombers headed to there. So they were basically showing the big larger bomber groups where to drop their bombs. So it's a very dangerous job, because they will I suppose that's where the saying "get the flak" comes from. They take all the flak because they're the ones that are they're not well defended,
be shot out by all the ground defences.
Yes, thanks. They're the ones that will they're not going in with sort of fighter support, the same that the larger bomber groups.
And they're not even dropping bombs; they're just dropping flares to set, aren't they? To set a light so that the other bombers will see where to drop the bomb.
So an incredibly dangerous job. And actually, my great uncle Jimmy, he was a Pathfinder, but not interestingly enough for Bomber Command, but for Coastal Command. And he was subsequently killed. I think he was only 18. And he was killed over the North Sea I think, or some. I think it was either over the North Sea or the plane was shot and didn't make it back and crashed over the North Sea. And so, you know, for me, I suppose in a way it kind of hits at home that how real it is, and this series does a very good job with very little resources, I would say. You can get it from Network, but yeah, so I found this in my sort of want for more World War II dramas. I love the film The Battle of Britain, and this in a way feels...
I think that's a tremendous film, The Battle of Britain. Yeah.
Probably one of my favourite films. I can quote it as I watch it, rather amusingly.
Incredible cast. I saw it at the cinema, you know.
Oh, you're lucky.
I've got a cinema programme of it.
Oh, super.
Yeah, full colour programme, yeah.
I would love to see that again at the cinema, actually. If they ever showed it on film, you know, I would love to watch that, because it's a film that I just think is so powerful and at times really sort of quite harrowing. And yeah, you know, you forget as well that half the people in that film either would have served or their parents certainly would have served. So it's a huge, you know, again, the time.
It's such a thing to do, isn't it? People hardly ever make films like that now, you know, about an entire a section of a war, you know, and make it. Films tend to be more about a person, or, you know, it's interesting seeing a film like Dunkirk. Now, that's the closest we've got in recent years, I think, to there being a film like The Battle of Britain. I mean, Darkest Hour, I'd just like to go on record as saying that's absolutely awful film. I mean, it's
I've not seen it,
it's actually, right up my street, and to watch that and to see what a terrible, terrible film it is. I mean, you know, you have to be pretty awful to stop me enjoying a film about World War II, to be quite frank. But it's just awful. It's just so full of lies. There are distortions of the truth, and you think, well, the true story itself is interesting and harrowing, and you know, and they've just made nonsense up, and there's so much historical inaccuracy in it. I just think, what is the point? Why have you done that?
Well, it's sort of irony as well of it all is, you know, history is interesting, and these events, you're making a film about these events because they're all these people, because it's interesting. So by changing it for the point of making a film, you might as well just write a complete load of fiction about something that doesn't exist.
Well, quite.
If you're going to go down that route. There's an interesting one as well. Great, I love the film actually, but it is built on lies. Have you ever seen The Red Baron?
Oh, what, with Robert Shaw?
This is a new one, so it's about...
Oh, no.
But in that one, there's a very famous thing in there where...
I was thinking the Blue Max. Sorry, anyway, yeah.
But this one, it has Baron von Richthofen says that he says in there, we're not shooting men, we're shooting aeroplanes. And that was in that film. But what Baron Richthofen actually said is, we're not shooting airplanes, we're shooting men. Yeah, how can you get
it around the other way? Brilliant, well done.
It's just so, and he's sort of saying, you know, this basically the notion of the film is that this is for sports, and we're good, you know, we don't think about the fact that we're killing other people. But in reality, it was the opposite. His whole mentality was, we've got to win and we're going to kill the enemy. So very interesting to see how that happens. Just got up here, and there is a new Battle of Britain film actually being made by Ridley Scott.
That'll be a laugh a minute, won't it? That'll be as boring as hell.
Well, you know, I like the grand scale of these old films where they would have.
Is he producing it or directing it?
He is directing it.
Oh dear.
Matthew
I'm
Orton
clearly never going to work for it.
Is writing the script. Who I've no idea who that is. I mean,
what has Ridley Scott directed in recent years that's actually not been just very long and dull?
Controversial words there. I mean, I'm not a great film guy, actually. I'm certainly not a great...
He doesn't grab you, does he? Everything looks beautiful in a Ridley Scott movie. I mean, he's an incredible... And and Blade Runner and Alien are massively important to me. I thought they were beautiful things, but it's all, you know...
I think I know he was a producer on Man in High Castle, which I didn't enjoy, and that's a war film. That's a concept that I love. I love those films about what if the enemy won and that. And you know, that two examples. I really didn't like the Man in High Castle. I thought it was all done completely not how I would have done it. And also, what was that? SSGB didn't rate the production of that because I couldn't hear what anybody said. It was all mumbly.
I know, yeah.
So, but yeah, he hasn't done.
I don't think that's come back for a new series. I think they were setting it up to do more on it. I watched it in spite of myself. That is a shame. Have you ever read the book Fatherland?
I've not. It's on my list of books I need to read.
That's a what if the Germans won the war thing, and that is fascinating and beautifully written. And it's been made into a pretty mediocre film.
Really?
Which isn't worth watching. But it's not awful, the film. I think it's like a TV movie or something. It certainly looks like a TV movie.
Yeah, they're always hit and miss, aren't they, really?
Anyway, we're actually getting to the end of this, and I haven't revealed yet that I really hated Pathfinders.
Did you really?
I couldn't even get through that episode because I thought it was such a terrible television program on so many levels. I thought it was really badly written, really badly acted, appallingly directed, and it's just full of just cliches and sexism and shot really, the actors kept sort of forming a crescent around the camera to keep their faces and doing. Oh, it's just awful.
I couldn't stand
rubbish.
the acting. I tell you what, I couldn't stand was all the actors who weren't foreign playing foreign characters, like that Irish bloke. I wasn't sure if he was meant to be Irish or if he was meant to be Australian
or just mad or something.
Or just mad.
He was a real Gummidge or something.
He was a real character, and arguably as well, the woman he was chatting up agreed to it, and she agreed to go on a date with him.
Oh, and all this groping, horrible groping.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that the first
rubbish.
I was watching it on the train, and so I watched the first one, and
you got arrested.
I watched the first one, and I wasn't completely sucked into it. Although I have to say I actually did enjoy it because I found I thought it was just sort of light-hearted. So you didn't have to think too clearly. But I watched the second episode, which has the chap who played Kevin Webster's father in Coronation Street in it, because every episode has a different cast and a different bunch of characters.
Well, completely different.
Pretty much, yeah. Apart from
that makes me want to watch it, because this bunch were, apart from Jack Watling, but the whole thing, I thought the way it was pitched and directed was just, it wasn't realistic, it wasn't funny, and the plot was as dull as ditch water. It was just like a sort of really bad impersonation of a really rubbish war film made with no money.
This has got no money. This was made in 1972.
Wow.
Yeah, no money is basically it. But every episode has pretty much, apart from obviously the really main guys, that everybody in it is different. We've got Jeffrey Baildon comes in episode 10.
It's not even set at the same airfield with that same.
I think it is
aggressive Scottish wing commander who's just unpleasant to everyone for no apparent reason.
Just grumpy, but
I'm really tough. Go out there and fly.
The thing about Bomber Command is that they, in reality, it was their turnaround was so quick that these people didn't last. I actually filmed.
That's at least realistic, isn't it? That they didn't have the same cast.
And so all the second episode is a lot better.
Idiots, all those annoying idiots in that plane get blown up, do they?
Well, you don't see them again, really. You don't. And
do you see them get blown up?
I can't remember. To be honest, I don't think you see them.
I might watch it for that because I found them so annoying.
The second one's better because it's more about love and loss, and you also get some stuff that's not in the air. So they're basically you get the operation going on in Germany with this amazing old sort of English scientist there who's saying, just a minute, I've just got to go do this, and they're saying, come on man, we've got to get out before they drop the bombs, just a moment, patient. But it's quite, I'd say it's fun, but there's some it's got quite
maybe I should watch some more then. It's just that I thought this was reprehensible, really.
It ain't great, but it's I wouldn't say it's bad.
I've got form for liking all sorts of nonsense, but this didn't, because I sort of remember it being on. It used to be on Sunday nights, and I think I used to try and watch it, and just found it just not interesting at all. And that all came back to me while watching this.
I think it is what it is.
Everything's just overstated and it's being directed by someone who hasn't got a clue how to get a performance out of an actor, or had 0.5 seconds to do it, which is possibly. But it is all on film, isn't it? They shot it on 16mm by the look of it.
If
they shot it on 35, I shall have to complain to my local MP.
Oh, well, quite. My favourite things is that when you see all the Lancaster bombers, it's obvious that it's a model.
Really? They've got some realistic footage, though, haven't they?
They use some bits and bobs because, the majority of what you see is a model. And when they're in the plane, they do things like they have the smoke machine, and there's clearly somebody wafting it past the window to make it look like clouds or whatever.
I didn't even get to that.
Oh, it's, give the second episode a try, because that's quite fun. But there's some quite good little cast. There's John Levine's in episode 8, Richard Franklin in 11, Richard Heffer in episode 3, Michael Craze. Your regular people around
some
this time.
Doctor Who stars. Okay,
yes.
Well, look, I'll buy the box set.
Oh, blimey. I'll tell you one that you should buy. Okay, whilst we're on the subject, we should cover this, because the best series I've seen about the Second World War on television is one called Piece of Cake.
Oh, okay.
And that is a brilliant series about Spitfire pilots. It's absolutely brilliant.
When was that made?
That is in the 80s, I think. Let's have a look. Piece of Cake.
Piece of Cake. And that's available on DVD, is it?
Yeah, it's available on DVD. 1988. Really, really fun series.
Who's in it?
Richard Hope's in it, actually. Who posted? I tweeted him about it, and he said he plays a great character called Skelly, or Skull Skelton, and he sent me a picture of he took of the Spitfire going under a bridge. But they had exclusive Spitfires. They filmed new footage for it. So it's really good. So you've got Neil Dudgeon and Boyd Gaines.
I don't think we should do that one next time.
No,
I'm certainly going to have a look at it. I should quickly tell everyone who the winner of the Captain Scarlet and the Mistrons competition is. Greetings and felicitations, Messrs. Clifford and Briggs. This was going to be a quick email for the competition, but I want to go a little further than that. The answer to the competition is Lieutenant Green in the original and best, in my humble opinion, series of Captain Scarlet. It was played by Cy Grant, and Lieutenant is pronounced Lieutenant. Not sure why, but there's bound to be some reason for it, because it's the British way of doing it. Now to the rest. I was over the moon when you decided to do a podcast on Wurzel Gummidge. I had fond memories of it from when I was young, born in 1968, and it was a real surprise to watch the first episode again and to see how different it was to my memory of it. Mandela effect in full force. No. I remember it as being all fun and light-hearted, which most of the rest of the series is, but the first episode was actually really creepy. It made Wurzel out, to begin with, to be some sort of horror monster from my worst nightmares. And this was a kids' program! 3 exclamation marks. As for Dafthead, my God, where did they dream him up? I'd forgotten that Charlotte Coleman was in this as well. So had I. And what a great talent she was too. I grew up watching her in this and later on in the Marmalade Atkins series, future podcast material, ? And as I was born the same year as her, it was a real shock when she died at the tender age of 33. I was born the same year as Charlotte. To close this long email, I'd like to say thank you to both of you for these wonderful podcasts and dips into TV history. Long may you continue. Buck up! Regards, Rob Alderson. So, Rob, you need to send us your postal address, which you've neglected to do. Please do send that, and then we can get a prize sent to you when that Blu-ray set of Captain Scarlet, all 4 volumes, is released. Okay, congrats. Benji, my wife is standing here to come with me to school to pick my son up. So what are we going to watch next time?
I don't know. Shall we do The Nightmare Man?
Yes.
Let's do The Nightmare Man. So from me, it's been sensational. From Nick?
It's been ultra sensational. Cheerio.
Cheerio. Goodbye.
Pressing stop now. Ka-chunk.
I have not, until now, thought to commit to paper a full account of the facts concerning the strange decline and the subsequent disappearance of my friend Dr. Julian Lang. In truth, it would be more honest to state that I have never dared to do so. Nonetheless, certain recent occurrences have made it horribly imperative that I set down a comprehensive narrative of all that took place whilst I am still, if barely, in my right mind. I first met Dr. Lang early in the summer of the year 1890. He had come to us as a tutor at the college of which I had then, and still possess today, the great good fortune to be the rector. He hailed, I believe, from some undistinguished provincial institution where he had served for 6 or 7 years.